Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Motorcyclist MC Commute. You guys know the deal this morning. We're going to be riding to the motorcyclist office in Southern California on Harley-Davidson's 2020 Street Glide Special. Today's episode is brought to you by Cortec. On this morning's ride, I'm wearing the Cortec Marquee jacket, Cortec Executive Leather Boot, the Standard Denim Jean, and Brody Textile Glove. If you want to know more about these products, please visit the link in the description of this video. Now let's put the helmet on and go for a ride. Alright guys, here she is, Harley-Davidson's 2020 Street Glide Special. This is a premium up-spec version of Harley-Davidson's long and low Street Glide with the iconic Batwing fairing. This bike is a beautiful machine. Cruisers, baggers, love her or hate them, this bike is a very nice looking bike. Look at the paint on this thing. You wouldn't even believe the amount of effort and time and detail Harley-Davidson puts in to painting its products. It's unbelievable that the paint operation they have. The detail in this paint is just incredible. Look at that flake in the sun. Look at the two-tone contrasting colors. It's just an absolute beautiful bike. This Street Glide Special stands out from the normal Street Glide in its use of all black finish. There's no chrome on this bike. Everything's black. It also has these awesome wheels on it and these dropped bags. Now it's hard to tell when you're looking at them, but these bags are a little bit lower, they're a little bit more slanted, and they give the bike a sleeker, more speedy, I guess you could say, lines. So lower bags, blacked out treatment, black wheels, and then a painted inner fairing, which we'll show you in a second. But enough talking about this thing. Let's hop on it and see what it's like to ride. Alright guys, here we go. There's no traditional motorcycle key on these Harley-Davidsons. It's got a key fob, electronic key fob, which I've put in the saddlebag. Look at this, a touchscreen. Full color TFT touchscreen with gloves makes life easy. There we go. What do you guys think of the sound? Love the sound of these Harley-Davidson 45-degree V twins. There's nothing on earth that sounds like this motorcycle. Now this particular Street Glide Special is loaded with all the bells and whistles. It's got the premium two-tone paint. It's got the RDRS advanced traction control with cornering ABS, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And it's got this beautiful touchscreen, which we talked about, and the bigger speakers. So if you're an audiophile, you are going to enjoy this motorcycle. Let's go to the next one. Sorry guys, quick little detour here. That guy was in our way. So we'll go this way and then he won't be in our way. Right away, sitting on this motorcycle, these bikes are just, this is the lap of luxury. Literally, the lap of luxury. If you're looking for a motorcycle that just has the utmost in comfort, this bike is certainly one of the bikes I would pick. The seat is nice and deep. It supports your rear end very well. When you're sitting in this motorcycle, it feels like you are sitting in it. You are sucked down in it. It cups your butt just in the right way. Handlebar it's a little more old schooling, I guess you could say. It's got a lot of rearward sweep. If you see this right here, the sweep is very much rearward, where a more modern feel or a modern handlebar would have sweep that's more aggressive. So you don't really notice that until you ride some of the competition. Then you're like, wow, this feels real old school and kind of teensy weensy. But at the same time, this this degree of sweep that the handlebar has gives you a lot of comfort. Like when you're riding, just right, even when you're standing still or riding on the freeway, there's no effort needed to hold on to the handlebar, and your arms are just in a very natural position that doesn't require a lot of energy at all to maintain. So it's really a neat touch. You have to remember, Harley-Davidson's building these bikes, particularly the Street Glide, for 14 years, and before that they've been building fairing mounted motorcycles, I think, since the 1960s. So they have a lot of experience doing it, and these refined ergonomics, especially on these touring bikes, really just show how much Harley-Davidson pays attention to those subtle things. Foot control wise, compared to a normal, or I guess normal to us, motorcycle where you have foot pegs, this bike has floorboards. So we've got floorboards where our feet sit, and the floorboards are positioned a little bit more forward than a typical motorcycle, so your knees are in the breeze, quite literally. But it's a comfortable riding position. Other than that, it rides very much like a normal motorcycle. Now, what I really like about this bike is just how smooth it is. From the engine to the handling to everything about it. It's a very smooth motorcycle. This particular bike is outfitted with Harley-Davidson's 114 cubic inch engine. I think that's right around 1869 cc's, if my math in my head serves me correctly. So 1869, 1870 cc's of power. It's a little over 100 cc more than the standard 107 cubic inch engine that comes in the standard Street Glide. So the Special also gets a bigger capacity engine. Of course, the nomenclature of the bike, Milwaukee 8, it's got an 8 valve cylinder heads. Harley-Davidson came out with this engine a couple years ago, and they did that just to be able to deliver more performance, more smooth running, have an engine that's more efficient, that can meet emission standards in other parts of the world. And this Milwaukee 8 is just, just when a Harley-Davidson can't make the engines any more smooth or any more well calibrated, they come out with this thing. This engine is smoother, it's more quiet in terms of mechanical noise. You actually hear more of that awesome exhaust potato sound than ever before, and it's just a better engine overall. This thing puts out a whopping amount of torque, 111 foot-pound of torque at the back Dunlop tire. 111 foot-pound of torque, right around 2,800 RPM. Makes around 80 horsepower on the dyno. So horsepower numbers aren't outrageous by any means. Helmet's fogging up here. But the torque is. The torque output is quite just amazing how much power this thing puts out. Less than that thing sing. It's just so fun to run through the 6-speed gearbox and just grab shifts and just let the pipes just play their 45-degree V-twin fury. Definitely the highlight of the bike. One of the highlights of this bike is just running through the gearbox. Oh God, we were really speeding back there. Harley-Davidsons get a bad rap for not being playful, but they actually are. The engines are very playful, especially this Milwaukee 8 114. Finally, a corner. Harley-Davidson
Obviously, the first Street Glide came out in 2006. I think we talked about that. And in 2009, Harley-Davidson fitted an all-new chassis, new suspension, really refined the handling of this bike. I think I went on that press introduction, or maybe the 2010 Harley-Davidson press introduction, and I couldn't believe back then how well these big touring bikes handle. And fast forward to today, and that these pleasing handling manners are still very much alive and apparent in this motorcycle, even though the frame itself is over 10 years old. So a very nice handling bike from Harley-Davidson. It's important to note that a couple years ago, when they went to the Milwaukee 8 platform engine, they also introduced a unique technology from their suspension supplier, Showa. Harley-Davidson's been running Showa suspension forever. And this bike, as all the touring bikes, is fitted with Showa's dual bending valve suspension technology. Now, what that is it's basically, instead of the valve inside the fork having a fixed amount of fluid movement, these valves, there's two of them, they actually they bend, they float, and they allow different amounts of fluid transfer at different parts of the stroke. And basically what that does is it equates to a more controlled ride. So when you're let's say you're putting a lot of pitch on the front end with the front brake, or you're giving it a lot of gas the suspension is actually able to respond to those changes more accurately and a little bit with more consistent damping. And basically, if you have more consistent damping, you have more control of the motorcycle. So that's what Harley's done with the addition of the Showa dual bending valve set up inside the fork. Alright guys, I gotta crack my face shield. I can't see anything because of all the fog. It just rained here. It was a deluge yesterday, and the humidity is quite high here in Southern California, which is unusual. See the traction control light kick on. We'll talk about that right now. This motorcycle is outfitted with Harley-Davidson's RDRS option. It's a $1,000 upcharge that you can purchase on all the touring bikes. It comes standard, I believe, on the live wire and the premium CVO equipped Harley-Davidson touring bikes. And what this RDRS is basically Harley-Davidson's traction control package, which also encompasses cornering ABS. So what Harley-Davidson's done is they've actually fitted an IMU. It's the same chip that your iPhone and other modern smartphones possess. And what that chip does is it allows the motorcycle to have positional awareness in the X, Y, and Z planes. So yaw, pitch, and roll. So the motorcycle now understands where it is in space. And it uses that information and feeds it to the ECU. And if you give the motorcycle too much throttle for given lean angle or vehicle conditions, or conversely you're leaned over too much with too much front brake input, it'll actually automatically reduce power or take out brake pressure from the front brake and move it to the back brake, or vice versa, while you're riding. It does it automatically. So it's pretty impressive technology. I mean, this is technology that up until recently only high caliber sport bikes had. I mean, the high caliber sport bikes have just introduced this technology a few years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago. So for Harley-Davidson to be implementing this on their touring bikes, it's quite amazing. And just the amount of engineering time and testing it requires to develop that kind of system, it's it takes a lot of time to get it right. And it's amazing that Harley-Davidson has been able to introduce it so quickly and implement it on these motorcycles. We haven't had a chance to really wail on this motorcycle and corner and ride it really hard, so we can't actually vouch for how well it works. But just during this commute ride, it's very effective, and based on Harley-Davidson's ability to test and engineer things, I'd assume that it works pretty good when you get to the twisty stretches of pavement. Here we go, guys. 6-speed transmission puts power back to the 18-inch Dunlop tire via belt final drive. We've got a hydraulic clutch here. Harley-Davidson's always switched between manual and hydraulic, manual, hydraulic. This thing has a hydraulic clutch, and it's been a while since I've ridden a street glide. In fact, I haven't ridden one of the new Milwaukee 8 street glides with this hydraulic clutch, and this clutch has way more feel than the clutch had in the previous generation touring bikes. Before, I remember it was very on and off. You had the clutch depressed and the motor was in neutral, and then you let it out and it was in gear, and there was not much feathering you could do. This one has more modulation. It's still a little bit stiff and still a little bit dull feeling compared to other companies' clutch setups. Whoa. But it's not a little slippery out here, guys. But it's still way more effective than I remember. And honestly, when you're riding these Harley-Davidsons, there's some intrinsic things you want to have, which I know it kind of sounds silly, but you want to have a little bit more clutch lever pull. You want to have this cool mechanical clunk when you go through the gearbox. That clunk isn't a clunk like the gearbox isn't well made. It's a clunk that gives you a good, secure mechanical feeling. It's almost like the tick-tock of an old watch from the 1800s. Like, that is what kind of character these motorcycles possess. I'm very happy we have this RDRS system, because the roads are very slippery, as you can see, because the rear tire is starting to move a little bit and the traction control light's starting to flash. Suspension on this bike, this thing really does give just a very regal ride. It just floats over the bumps very well. It just delivers a very pleasing ride experience. This batwing floating fairing, it moves with the handlebar. So when you turn the handlebar right, the fairing goes right. Turn it left, the fairing goes left. And it does a good job of blocking the wind. Harley-Davidson used to have this vent cover here. This vent cover is to reduce the turbulence of the air behind the fairing here. Previously, they had it where you could actually open the vent, but they deleted that setup for 2020, and now it's just fixed. This bike now includes all LED lighting, which really helps you stand out on the road. It also helps to see what's going on in front of you. Instrumentation, I love obviously this big color TFT display. And these analog gauges are very nice too. I mean, it's a nice duality between the classic vibe of an American motorcycle with these gauges, and then, you know, the modern function of a touchscreen instrument face. Having some major congestion today, which isn't quite normal on this route, but you know, a lot of people bag on Harley-Davidsons. You have to remember, this motorcycle weighs 800 pounds, 800 some pounds. However, in motion, you'd be surprised with how light it is. It actually changes directions with very little effort. It's a very easy motorcycle to put where you want, especially when you're moving. You definitely feel it's 800 some pounds at a standstill, but when you're moving, it actually goes quite agile motorcycle. This Harley-Davidson's equipped with link brakes, so when you actuate the front brake, it actually puts a little bit of pressure on the rear brake as well. Conversely, if you just use the rear brake, it's going to automatically actuate the front brake as well. And the system works very seamlessly. You can feel it when it's adding that pressure, especially if you're using the rear brake very aggressively. But it works well, and it's a nice safety feature for folks who don't quite understand the full potential of braking hardware on these motorcycles. When you're traveling below 25 miles per hour, the linked brakes is actually disabled. So when you add front brake, it's only to the front brake. When you add rear brake, it's only to the rear brake. So Harley-Davidson understood that when you're doing delicate parking lot speed maneuvers, you might want to have that independent brake input. So they've allowed for that in the programming. Another cool feature we didn't quite touch on the RDRS package, traction control, cornering ABS. It also has this vehicle hold control. So let's say you're at a hill, you're on an incline at a stop sign. Well, if you enable the system, you hold the brake long enough, it will automatically hold the bike there with the brake pressure that you've added. So you can let off the brake and the motorcycle will hold there, and it won't release the brake until you get rolling. So a very nice feature. If you've ever ridden two up with a passenger and a lot of cargo, you'll probably understand that sometimes launching a motorcycle when you're on an incline, when you're loaded down with all that weight, can be kind of tricky, especially if you don't have the best balance. And that feature will really be a significant help for people who ride in those kinds of conditions on that terrain. Braking components on this bike: triple hydraulic disc brakes supplied from Brembo, 4-piston front calipers, and this bike has some serious stopping power. Stopping power is good. The feel from the brake lever too is very good. It's accurate. Talked about that Showa dual bending valve that helps mitigate forward pitch when you're using the front brakes aggressively. I remember the old bike would pitch a lot when you were on the front brake and riding it in a sporty manner. The chassis on this bike's much more level and doesn't have that crazy pitch when you're using the front brake with vigor. We're almost to work, guys. Let's see what the music system sounds like real quick.
Who's going to the movies? Who's going?
This is max volume, guys.
Let's all go to the lobby.
What do you guys think, man? You guys like David Bowie?
What's that, man? Was it good
Wasn't
today?
David Bowie, it's just people talking nonsense on this radio station.
That compliment sounded like more of a compliment.
That's what the radio sounds like, guys. Another neat feature this bike includes is HD Connect. That's a new feature for Harley-Davidson. It's a subscription-based service where there's actually a cellular chip in this motorcycle that can connect to the interwebs and connect via your phone. So you have to download the Harley-Davidson app on your smartphone, and you can actually monitor the fuel level and vitals of your motorcycle when it's parked. It also will alert you if your motorcycle moves from its position. So if you're worried about theft or you just want to monitor your bike you're at all times, that subscription service is a handy feature. It's free for 1 year with purchase of your motorcycle, and after that it's $150. It would be nice if Harley-Davidson introduced some kind of safety thing where, you know, let's say you crash your motorcycle or you have an accident, and that HD Connect automatically would alert the paramedics or the police or whatever. I know another manufacturer is introducing that technology, so it'd be cool if Harley-Davidson could maybe implement that in the future. Alright guys, the wheelie test. Well, this bike will not do any wheelies, guys. I'm sorry. We can spin the tire though. You just turn traction control off and then just give her the beans, and now we're spinning. Oh, we just did a little spin out. Sorry guys, we're getting balked by this semi truck here. May as well do another spin out. Yep, there we go. Let's pass these guys. I don't know what they're doing. No backing it in test either, guys. This bike, well, if you're backing it in, something crazy might be happening to you. But when we're talking about backing it in, this bike actually has another cool feature, drag torque control. Basically, it's a feature where if you downshift too early or downshift with the engine spinning at too hard of RPM, where typically the rear tire would chirp or lose stability, the motorcycle automatically sorts that out so the rear tire doesn't lose stability. I forget exactly how it does it, whether if it elevates engine RPM or if it has a slipper clutch type functionality, but it does that. That's part of the RDRS package. Alright guys, we're here at the motorcyclist office. That was a very comfortable ride on the 2020 Street Glide Special. Alright guys, there you have it, Harley-Davidson's 2020 Street Glide Special. I really do like this motorcycle. I love the way it looks. I love the classic lines. I love the paint. I love the blacked out fit and finish. I love those big wheels with those low pro 19-inch front tire. Very aesthetically pleasing bike, and it rides just as well as it looks. And that engine, a lot of people bag on Harley-Davidsons for being hunks of junk, but this bike is a nice bike. Sounds cool, has good performance, handles well, it's comfortable, the fit and finish is of high quality. I mean, this is a motorcycle that's built in York, Pennsylvania, and the fit and finish on it is very, very nice. This is a well-made motorcycle. But enough of me talking about it. Let's answer some questions from the fans and see what's up. All right, let's go straight to the top, guys. Answer some questions. Broody011, is it fun? Yes, it is fun. This motorcycle is a fun motorcycle to ride. And even though we didn't go whaling on it today on our way to work, you can whale on these motorcycles. You can ride them really hard and put them away wet. What are your thoughts on the clutch effort compared to other bikes in this segment? We talked about that. The clutch effort is a little bit heavy, even though it has hydraulic functionality to make the lever pull a little bit easier. It's still a little bit heavy. To me, it's a big improvement over the previous generation of Harley-Davidson touring bikes. That clutch was very heavy and had no feel, so this is a big improvement. It's still a little bit heavy. If you're a new rider, that's going to be a caveat, I think, but I still like this bike. I like the clutch. I hope Adam gets a little silly with the throttle and rides a bit harder than the average cruiser review. Sorry, man, it was wet. We were going slow. There's track everywhere. We didn't really rip. I'd be curious to hear how the suspension feels under aggressive braking. We talked about that. The Showa dual bending valve fork valves really help that. It has better pitch control than before. You can ride these bikes pretty hard. How it responds to mid-quarter inputs. Will the suspension be slow and sluggish like an 80s bike, or sharp and crisp smash at premium price tag? Yes, this motorcycle feels relatively taut. Of course, it's a V-twin cruiser, so it's not going to have a sport bike levels of firmness, but the chassis feels taut. It feels like a well-built and well-put-together bike. One more question, guys. We didn't have very much. Awesome. Many thanks, guys. Adam, if possible, would you please tell us a little bit of feeling riding the new model compared to the 17, 18, and pre-Milwaukee 8 versions? Many thanks. Cheers from Brazil. I mean, to sum up this 2020 Street Glide and the Milwaukee 8 platform and the current Harley-Davidson touring bike platform it's just refined. These bikes are a lot more refined than ever. Yeah, I mean, from someone who doesn't know a lot of motorcycles, they all look the same. You can't really tell any differences. But if you dive in, they actually are more refined. The engine's smoother. It sounds better. The chassis is a little bit more refined. It has better handling. Suspension is more supple, yet has that controlled action. And the creature comforts with the big touch screen and the latch system on the saddlebags, everything has just been refined. And if you've ever wanted to experience Harley-Davidson touring bikes, now is the time. But would I buy this $30,000 Street Glide Special? Yes, the Street Glide Standard starts at $22,000, but you tack on the two-tone paint, you tack on the Special Edition, which is a $5,000 some upcharge with the bigger engine, the painted front fairing, the wheels, the blacked out treatment, and the RDRS package and freight and all that stuff, and this bike's pushing $30,000. It's a lot of motorcycle for a touring bike. I personally wouldn't put down $30,000 for this motorcycle. It's a little bit too much for me. I would most likely opt for a standard Street Glide. $22,000 seems much more reasonable for a motorcycle. Of course, this bike has a lot of value in it with the additional features it has on it. But at $30,000, a little bit too expensive for me. I would buy the standard Street Glide. There you have it, guys. A quick review of the 2020 Harley-Davidson Street Glide Special. If you guys want to know more about this motorcycle, please check out motorcyclistonline.com. There might be a review of the older motorcycle there. And if you want to know more, maybe check out cycleworld.com. They may have a review of this bike there. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.